Marilyn London, membership chairman and board member of the Friends of the Sterling Road Library. And I would like to welcome all of the friends of the library who are in attendance. And please know, it is because of your support that we are really able to have lectures as fabulous as Shelley is and who is with us here tonight. For any guests who are with us tonight, we absolutely welcome you and we encourage you to also become a friend of the library. And just please check us out at www.sterlingfriends.org. With an annual membership of $10, we're the best deal in town. So check us out and join us. Last year, we hosted 288 programs and we have a membership of 400 members. During a pandemic, I think that's pretty amazing. Couple of important reminders for you. Please check out your newsletters very carefully. October is so jam-packed. Chacon will be coming back on Monday for her art lecture. Tuesday, we have Emmanuel who will be giving us another fabulous music program. In addition to that, at the end of the month, we have college admission program to help the people who are going to college. We are doing this for the community. Please check us out it will be on the 21st of October, Wednesday, and the 27th, the next week on a Thursday for college kids. This is really amazing. And most important, we have our book fair that we will be having on the 27th and 28th. That's a Wednesday and a Thursday starting at 3:30 at the library. We need your support. So please come out and join us and get some books. I was there today with Susan. I know Susan's here somewhere. There are tons of books and you will have an amazing selection. And some of them are really, really, really good. So join us on that as well. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our lecturer, Shelley Isaacs, to you. Shelley is actually from the Bronx, and he got his undergraduate degrees in psychology and marketing and his master's in communication at NYU. I believe you began in advertising in the 70s, and through the years, you made your way to South Florida, where you are our expert in foreign language films, and how lucky are we to have you with us. Shelley teaches at LLI and FIU and FAU, but he also, there's something else. He has an amazing email and newsletter that he has, and he'd like you to receive his emails, and from there you could get whatever information he could provide. I will put his email address into the chat. It is cafecinematheque@gmail.com, but I don't expect you to remember that. So I will be putting that into the chat and make a note of it. Contact him and he will tell you all of his goodies that he wants to share with you. I've been getting it for years. It's great. Tonight's program, Little England, is just another amazing choice. Shelley will fill us in with all of the little background and most of the things that we missed, especially if we only saw it once, and the importance of keeping secrets or not keeping secrets. I'm sure you're going to be dealing with that as well. So everybody, please make sure you're on mute. There will be a Q&A at the end, and Shelley, take it away.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, everyone. It's nice to be back again this month. I see a lot of familiar names. I see some familiar faces, and it's always lovely to see. So tonight's film, Little England, or Mikria Anglia, which translates to Little England from the Greek, is from Greece from 2013. It was an official, or on the short list, I should say, for a best foreign language film from Greece in the Academy Awards. The director's name, Pantelis Vogaras, He is very well known in Greece. He's also known in international cinema, and he's been at the forefront of contemporary Greek film for the last 40 to 50 years. And in a sense, what he does here and what he likes to do is reinvent or refresh the idea of melodrama by exploring the psychic, what he calls the psychic structure of Greek women and the impact of wider societal structures upon the family, as we see in the film. Now, the screenplay, interestingly enough, was written by Ioana Karistiani, and it is an adaptation of her much praised novel, The Jasmine Isle. And that was published back in 1997 and became an instant bestseller. Not only that, it won the Greek National Award for Literature that year. But coincidentally, she happens to be married to the director, which makes it even more interesting. So this is a family affair. And as someone once said about the film, this is a woman's picture, but in the most positive sense of the word. It's a woman's picture that everyone can, that will resonate with everyone. It is a story, as we saw, if you watch the film, a story of seamen tossed around by the oceans and women anchored to an island and tortured by the waves of loneliness. We have several great characters in the film, which I'll get to as I discuss it, but it's a story of passion, love, loss, betrayal. It's a romantic opera of emotional and libidinal repression set on this island of Andros, which is the northernmost of the Greek Isles. It's part of what they call the Cyclades. Now, the Cyclades are a ring of islands that ring around Delos, which is considered the most religious island among the Greek Isles. But the story itself is quite complex and it's intriguing, as we've seen. Set in the 1930s and 40s, beginning actually in 1930s, about the love affair of these two sisters, Orsa and Muska. And they both will come under the love of the same man, one unbeknownst to the other. And it's within this provincial society of Andros where this community of women is left to look after themselves and each other while their fathers, their brothers, their husbands and sons go out to sea. Some never return. The film creates a strange atmosphere of confused emotions and tangled identities from which this colorful melodrama emerges. It also is sort of a creation on the director's part of modern myth. As we look at it, references ancient myth and creates new myth, as well as referencing Greek drama. Greek drama never leaves us. It's almost in every great film we see the roots of Greek drama, and we see them really here as well. From the first shot of the film, the director stresses the presence of the surrounding water. Water naturally plays a great deal in symbolism as well as in the drama. But the presence of the surrounding water, the violence of the waves, they suggest at once, that the perils of the sea and a relatively safe landmass, though there are plenty of treacherous emotional shoals to be navigated on land. And the opening song expresses a sense of tragedy, especially with the words, "a tempest in the soul," a tempest in the soul, which comes back to us later on with Spiros, with the character Spiros. But breaking down the characters, we meet Minna the matriarch, or as she's referred to, the Viper, shrewd, calculating. Her priority is to marry her daughters off to wealthy husbands, for her love has preciously little to do with marriage, especially if you remember a sentence she utters. She says, "If you don't love your husband, you won't be disappointed when he inevitably starts looking elsewhere." And she knows, she's a veteran. She knows that Sava, her husband, as we do at the beginning of the film, has his love rooted somewhere else as well as with Mina. And then there is Orsa, who is called 15 kilograms shy of an Aphrodite. She is the elder daughter, and she is in love naturally with Spiros. These are the first two lovers we see in the film. We see them on by the sea, and we see a symbol that will reappear throughout the film. It's almost a tie to the past, as well as a symbol of their love. That spoon that Spiros takes out of the water, and he says, "Look what I have for you." And he gives her that spoon. And that spoon also becomes the last thing we see in the film, if you remember. It ties them. But it's as if it's a piece of ancient history that he's dug from the water, the Greek waters. It's obviously washed off a ship again. And she will hold on to that. It becomes a symbol of their love as well. She drinks from it at one point in the film. She drinks from the water of the ocean, as if being eternally tied to Spiros, as that's how she feels. She said, "I was in love with you since I was 12 years old." Now, we become privy to this love. Mina is aware of this love, and she's going to do anything she can to stop it. But the only one that doesn't know about this love is the one who he will eventually marry, Mosca. Mosca, she is the only one in the dark throughout almost the entire story until a certain point, naturally. And Mosca, being the youngest sister, she is a free spirit. And we see that throughout the film. She's tough, she's resilient, but she wants to leave the island. At the beginning, she tells her friends, "This place is stale. I want to get out of here." Because she doesn't want to lead the life of a Greek sailor's wife, unfortunately, she will. So we see all of this taking place on this island. So from that first shot, we're exploring so much. Memory plays a big part in this film. Nostalgia, lost through the space of actual experience. And there is the imaginary space of memory. There's the memories of Orsa constantly invade her mind during the film. It's as the director says, he bases this film on the human form itself, the human face. And we have a lot of close-ups in the movie where we explore, Orsa's eyes constantly staring at us through the camera, the movement of the bodies in front of the camera, the movement of the clothes. If you remember at the beginning of the film, when they're welcoming home the sailors, we hear the waving of the clothes, the waving of these scarves and things. We hear them. We hear the sound of the clothes. The reality of small objects is paid attention to in the film. If you remember when Spiros goes to sea and he first learns that Orsa has gotten married to someone else, he goes down to his cabin, he opens that little box, and he's looking at the postcards, the pictures, and there in that box is that little what Orsa called the circle of the Maltebes being the name of Spiros Maltebes, and that little thing she sewed for him, and the ring is in the box, the ring which he'll eventually give to Orsa, and there is that watch, the ultimate passage of time. But we see, all the transforming presence of furniture when Orsa goes to the house of Nikos, where he wants them to live. And she said, "I can't live here. There are too many ghosts walking in this place." So a sense of, not wanting to be part of that past. The magnetic rituals that take place in the living room, the gathering of the women. There is the wedding at the home. There is, what he calls, what the director calls the sexualization of female hair. Orsa's hair blowing in the breeze, and of course Mosca's red hair, the fiery Mosca. What better symbol than for her to have red hair? And finally, there is what we call the poetry of the bedroom. That's one of the wonderful elements of the film, is that Minna sets it up that both daughters have to live in the same house. This is the dowry, and Mosca lives upstairs, and Orsa lives downstairs. And I love it when Mosca gets married, and Orsa hears everything through the ceiling. She hears everything through the ceiling, and she goes and finds out from the builder that Minna spent money on everything except the floors. She wouldn't put mud between the planks, which could deaden the sound. She wanted everything to be heard in the house. And Orsa hears everything. Orsa hears everything. The ultimate symbol of this whole world, though, is the sea. The sea from the womb to the grave. The sea is ever present. The sea is at the beginning of the film, and the sea is at the end of the film. The crashing waves, they are such a symbol of the life, not of just of this island, but life in general. It's almost the universal. There's a real sense of community that runs through the film, especially with the women. They collectively say goodbye to the men. They collectively welcome them back. They negotiate with one another, especially when Mosca has her eyes set on David, the teacher, the English teacher. And Minna goes and has him removed from the island. She has him removed from the island. And I love it when the other one says, we'll get another Englishman. She says, no, you'll get an English woman. She doesn't want her daughter corrupted. I love, there's so much good dialogue in the film. But the film focuses again on what we call this triangle of Mosca, Orsa, and Spiros. Or if we want to look at a triangle of three women, it's Orsa, Mosca, and Minna. There are actually two triangles working in this film. We see, Minna, who's always barking that her husband is always away, so she has to rule the house. And at the end, it comes down to her saying, "You were never here. I had to deal with two women in this house, two women." Ravenhead also. She's 20 when the film starts. The film goes through over 15 years of time. So we see them, and Orsa is secretive. She really doesn't tell much to anybody. She especially doesn't admit her love to Spiros, to Mosca. So Mosca never knows. And there is the Uncle Emilio, Spiros' Uncle Emilio. He's almost like an unseen narrator in the film. He has the letters. He knows of Spiros' love for Orsa, and he even goes to Minna, and Minna rejects him and says, "I'm not going to have her marry a poor man." And he says, "But there are other things besides the pocketbook in this world." And as Minna again says, another philosophy that comes out of Minna, she says, if you don't love your husband, you won't be disappointed when he inevitably starts looking elsewhere. When he inevitably starts looking, and everything with wealth and status has to do with Minna, and therefore she marries him off to Nikos. And I love that scene when she goes, and we see how the idea of who these men are on the island, because there is the myth that Nikos would inherit what his father had, that his father had syphilis, and that will leak down into Nikos. It seems to be something that could spread around the island, these stories of, these seamen who go off into the world and what they bring back with them, besides their treasures. So we have all of that. And when Orsa leaves the island after she has the first child, their son, she returns and finds, and there's another one of those great scenes when she steps off the boat and Min is telling her that Mosca just got engaged the day before. And she said, "Oh, who did she get engaged to?" And down the steps walk Mosca and Spiros. And, it's as if Spiros feels, if I can't have one, I'll have the other. But in a sense, does he not possess Orsa as he possesses Mosca? He, in a sense, get a chance to possess them both, as we see finally in the film. While Minna is aware of Orsa's feelings, Mosca still has no idea. And the pain that Orsa feels is only amplified by the fact that they do all live under the same roof. And this is almost a nod, again, to Greek philosophy, Greek drama. Aristotle created this sense of unity in place and action, that there should be a unity of place and action. And the house represents that. It gives us a sense of unity of place and action. By rooting them in that house, that's where all the action will take place. And one has to go hand in hand with the other. And she has these nightly activities. The editing of the film expertly balances the specific emotional ups and downs. The pacing of the editing, the contrast of the scenes, mostly downs, of course, for Orsa. The wider sense of the community versus the intimacy of our few characters, the passage of time. The film moves through the 1930s towards the violence of full-scale war. And the battle of war, the war we don't see, which makes it that much more ironic and that much more touching. When we learn that a staggering 31 ships from Andros were lost during the war, including the vessel of the title, the Little England, which Spiros goes on to own. And there are so many scenes that I can call out in the film, wonderful scenes that we see, as well as the spoon itself having meaning. We see Mocha and David, the wedding at the home. What a spectacular scene that is. And again, the music is reflective. We constantly hear this tragic Greek music played throughout the film. We have that when Orsa learns about the flaws of the house. And then we see later on when Spiros returns and he's upstairs with Mosca, and they're discussing and they're making love. And at the same time, Orsa is feeling that love. It's as if he's making love to her at the same time. The rhythm of Mosca's lovemaking is the rhythm of Orsa at the same time. It's as they all climax together. I mean, it's an amazing, talk about a triangle. It's an amazing scene. We also see, Nikos. And I thought that was a wonderful scene when we first see Nikos. We hear that Orsa's betrothed to Nikos. We haven't seen him yet. And we see the servant, Alessia, coming in and putting on Nikos' shoes. And she's, and we only see him from the knees down. And they're talking about this wonderful marriage. And as the camera pans up, we finally see Nikos. He's not a bad catch. He's not a bad looking guy. We expected, God knows what in there, but yet he was good looking and he was compassionate. He was a compassionate soul. He wanted to give her a good life. He does give her a number of children along the way. We also, there's that wonderful scene, and I thought it was a great shot, again, of Mosca and Orsa on the rocks. Mosca dressed as a geisha, Remember, he sends home the clothes from Japan, and she's dressed, and Orsa's wearing the white makeup on her face, and her hair is done up like a geisha. And Tu is sitting there, and she said, you know, these kimonos, you hear him narrating his letter, that the kimonos I sent you from Japan. And she's saying, I wonder if he's, you know, taking up with Japanese women. He travels to all these places, but I don't think he'll have any of these women. He's got me. And she talks to Orsa about his lovemaking, and which is driving Orsa up a wall at that minute, you know, because Orsa has no idea. And then finally, Mosca has to dive into the cold water to cool off, and she winds up getting sick. She winds up developing a fever. And the next shot, we see Orsa caressing Mosca's body as if she's Spiros. You know, now she's possessing Spiros. You know, we have all of these senses of possession in the film. We have, you know, we see Sava finally leaving Angelita, the woman in Argentina. We realize he's left another family behind. He has his son. She says he doesn't want to say goodbye to you. He's off bicycling the island. But we realize that he's left another woman and a son somewhere else, you know, and he's going to return home. We see, finally, we see the ship, Little England, after that moment when Mosca tells Orsa to go home and fetch the daughter. As they're going home, she goes with Spiros. And we see that look when she turns around and stares at Spiros. And we don't know what happens yet, but we see Spiros arriving late for that dinner when everybody's gathering. And when they announce Little England, it is Mosca that holds up the picture, Our Little England, which is only one sense of the title, because Little England also refers to the island itself, the homes, the way the streets are set up. They fancy themselves like a Little England, like they're building their own little empire in Greece, because England was also a seafaring nation, and they see themselves as that kind of seafaring empire. So we see that, and we see when they announce the war, and it's mentioned that hopefully Spiros won't be subjected to, even though he's carrying cargo that is dangerous, the kerosene, all of these kinds of things. And a woman says, the injustice, hopefully he won't suffer the injustice of war, meaning death. But he says, it's not the injustice of war that worries me, it's other injustices that weigh down my soul. And what could he be referring to? What could he be referring to? We learn later on what happened between him and Orsa just before he came to the house. And we cut to the rocks occasionally. And if you notice, we see these craggy rocks in the sea. It's another nod to mythology. Remember Scylla and Charybdis in the journey of Odysseus, the two rocks being caught, that developed into the scene, into the saying, being caught between a rock and a hard place. That's Scylla and Charybdis. And aren't these characters caught between a rock and a hard place in their lives? It's almost a nod visually to the mythology. And then finally, when we learn of the ship going down, and we don't see it naturally, but we see the women come to the house, you know, and there's constantly a Greek chorus in this film. The women act also like a Greek chorus in the film, but we see the woman coming to the house and telling them that the ship went down and they don't know what happened to Spiros. There were only 3 survivors. And Orsa lets out that scream. For those of you who understand the Geschrei, I've never heard one like it. I mean, she could have brought the roof down, but that's the moment that Mosca learns what really happened, what really went on, because Orsa is yelling out, Spiros, my love, what's happened? The man, and now Mosca goes crazy and starts tearing up the house. All these emotions. It's an eruption of a volcano that we're seeing here, the two. And finally, we see the result of all of this. Mosca's anger played out, and she talks to Minna, telling Minna, I know what you did. How could you do this? You knew all along. And there's also the discovery of the letters. Mosca discovers the letters at Uncle Emilio's when he's not there in the house. And she sees every letter is inside the envelope to Orsa, to Orsa, to Orsa. And she brings the letters to Orsa. And she said, she thought that this love affair started after they were married. And she didn't realize, and now Orsa tells her the story. If you look at the letters, they were all dated 1929. They were dated before either of them got married. She tells Mosca that she was married to him at the age of 12. She felt that their souls were destined to be together. And then she tells her of the moment, which was when we hear about Little England. What we didn't see is revealed, that they made love on the rocks, and that Spiros wrote on her breast with his finger, SOS, SOS, save our souls, save our souls. And then, of course, as in any great myth, as in any great romantic story, he is not destined to return. He was not destined to return. And then finally, we see the end of the war, and we hear about Spiros is mythologized and becomes the great hero. Mosca is given the medal. They're all, the dead sailors are all honored. And finally, Nikos returns. And that's another great moment when Nikos first sees Mosca, and they hug, and she says, I haven't spoken to her for 3 years. Orsa has locked herself up. She's imprisoned herself on the island. And now, finally we see Nikos decides to leave. He's going to go off to America. And he has that moment with his son. And his son says, I'm not coming. I'm going off to sea. I'm going off to sea. So the cycle continues. The cycle will continue. And then we see all the children and Nikos leaving. It's the best thing he go to America, that she would join later on. But we see Mosca and we see Orsa together. And finally they're resolved. They're both in prison together. Their souls now locked forever, losing the love to the bottom of the sea. And we see finally Orsa succumbing. And what she drops the spoon. She drops the spoon, that great symbol that we've seen throughout the film. And then we're back into the waves crashing in that great dissolve of Orsa's face. And we saw Orsa coming to death gradually at the end of the film. And when she's paraded down the streets and she wants to be with the dead sailors, and Mosca, leading the way with her. But, and she dies dressed in white. She's going. There's also another symbol of these waters in the film, because they do represent the waters of death. They represent the waters of the river Styx. And it is if Orsa is drinking from that river at one point, because that's where Spiros goes, down in the river Styx when he goes to the other side. So we have so much symbolism in the film, so much to look at. It is a film that's, filled with poetic realism, what we call poetic realism. That there are representational things in the film, all these objects we see, the homes, the clothing. There are so many wonderful things about the production itself. And we mustn't forget that the film is also rooted in Greek, as I said, Greek drama, but it recalls the drama of Euripides, the great tragedist, who filled his plays with strong sentiments, that he had invisible narrators who appear sporadically within the play, like a missing chorus, to guide us over the period when the main action takes place, and how his own dramatic philosophy of men and women who feel imprisoned and destroy each other by the intensity of their love and hate, This film is also a very strong reminder of very classic filmmaking. This goes back to the golden age of cinema, to the 40s, to the 30s, and the 50s, reflective of rich, classically strong narratives and style, that we saw during that period. Films like this bring back the memory of happier days of film, of the history of visual culture, when spectators, when audiences like ourselves were seduced by a visual story and characters, complex characters, not simply shocked by them as we are today. Today we're shocked into these things. These narratives tell us a story, and keep us, compel us to dig deeper into these people and what they're thinking and what they're doing. The director was influenced by another great director. His name was Douglas Sirk. Douglas Sirk, during the 40s and 50s, made great Technicolor films. He did All That Heaven Allows, Imitation of Life. These were films that he created. And if you remember these films or you look for them, they usually play on Turner Classic Movies, Rock Hudson, Jane Wyman, Claudette Colbert. They were great melodramas that played out like these great Greek tragedies. Beautiful films, and using hyper attenuated color as he uses here, the colors of the film, the white houses, the colorful clothing, all of these things are part and parcel of these classic films. And he uses that as an influence in this film. But in a sense, he's rewritten the melodrama in many ways by refreshing it with what's ancient, by revitalizing the classic and showing it in this way. So I think he does a wonderful job, and it earned its Academy Award nomination very well. But there's one last quote, and it's a quote I read along the way. It's not from the film, but a great composer of opera said it once, Giuseppe Verdi. He said, "Let's return to the past. It will be a progress. It will be a progress." And here too, we return to the past, and it is a progress. It takes us into a future. It takes us into the beauty of film, as his did into the beauty of opera. So there you have, the makings of a great film, the symbolism, the acting, the performances are fabulous in the film. Even when they go over the top, we wait for it. We get these explosions. We see, Nikos on the boat when he's told he has his son, the happy captain. He embraces his first mate. They can't be there for the life events. The men are never present, and therefore their sons reject them as little boys. Remember, his little son rejects him when he brings him home the toy truck, because I don't know who you are. You say you're my father. Who's my father? We hear all of this. We see the birth of Orsa's daughter and wonder whose daughter is it, because Spyros is pacing the floor, and he's the one that has to write Nikos. He has a daughter. All of these little scenes, resonate so much within the film. So we have resonance in the film. We have relevance to a time and place. that some of us are familiar with through history. And we also have revelation. We have great revelation in the film. You know, secrets are revealed, betrayals are revealed, everything is revealed in the end. And finally, the characters, you know, the two characters, the two lovers will be reunited in death, will be reunited in death. So there you have it. Now I will be happy to open the floor for comments, questions. You could put them into chat. I'll look in chat. I think if you want to, you could put them in there. If you want to raise a hand or chime in, I'm here for you. Anybody? Somebody? Any comments or questions? Be glad to raise your. Rhonda, thank you. Go right ahead. Unmute yourself, Rhonda.
Unmute.
There you go. Okay.
Oh, she's muted. Unmute.
No,
Rhonda.
yeah.
Unmute.
She can't. She's
Press-
trying to.
Press your space bar. There you go.
Okay, there. Oh, that's embarrassing.
No, it's all right.
Why do you think Spiros decided to marry Muska? Do you think he was trying to get back at Orsa for marrying someone else, or did he want to be close to Orsa by marrying
Well,
her sister?
yeah, I think it's a complexity of emotions. One is, yes, if I can't have you, I'll have your sister. But Minna also engineered it because he
Right.
was now becoming a, you know, a sea captain. And therefore he would be worthy of one of her daughters. And maybe, you know, so she, in a sense, is, you know, she's playing God in this. She is this sort of twisted Deus ex machina in the film. She's not saving everybody, she's destroying everybody. You know, in a way, yes, it's sort of to be close to Orsa, but also a sense of revenge. It is a sense of revenge on his part. If I can't have one, I'll have the other. You know, I'll show you, Orsa. And it's, you know, you see it also, remember when they first go off to buy things for the marriage, and he's standing there with his hat and his suit, and he looks at Orsa, and he just gives her a look and walks off. But you also see the pain in his face during the course of the film when he goes to the cemetery and he's leaving, you know, paying his respects, and he's leaving, and you see a troubled soul. He was a troubled soul. You know, he was totally bitter. You know, he was angry at Orsa. He thought she betrayed him on purpose.
Right.
And doesn't realize what happened. So all these betrayals are hidden from the characters. But yes, I think it was a sense of possession, a sense of revenge.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
There was a question from Matthew saying, do you think that Spiros chose to go down with the ship?
Well, he was the captain. He was the captain. You know, a captain goes down with the ship. He was, you know, he was brave. You saw that whole ceremony on the ship for the dead souls they lost during the thing. But he threw his members of his crew overboard onto a lifeboat. You know, he knew that they go first. The captain goes last. I think this is the law of the sea. This is the law of a sailor. And if he's to die, he will die in battle. You know, these are also Greek warriors. He will suffer the death of the Greek warrior. Yes, of course he knew. He didn't necessarily know if he was going to die at that moment, but he was going down with the ship. If the ship goes down, he goes down with it. He goes down with it. So yes. Arlette, I saw your hand. If you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Well, like mothers are out there to help their daughters and of course have the best of everything. But Minna was a son of a bitch. I hate to say it. She really was. I know she was looking out for Orsa, but she was one mean, clever mother. Terrible. But you know what? The love between the sisters was so strong until we see what happened, with the marriage of Spyros to Orsa's sister. But then afterwards, you also see the coming together of the sisters again, how deep the love is for one another, even though they were so hurt previously to that part of the movie when they find out, they're waiting for him to see what's happening and they come together. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it
It's
is. And
all,
especially, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
It's all what you're saying is true, especially after they're both married or just before they're getting married. Remember, Mosca comes to her older sister and she says, do you love Nico? Do you really love Nico? Is love,
Yeah.
is will I love Spiros? She's questioning, how will we love these men? It's, even though they're arranged marriages, will they love each other? Will these people love each other? And yes, and she confesses to her sister, Mosca is the vocal one of the two.
Right.
And she's constantly telling Orsa and confessing to Orsa about lovemaking, about how she feels. He really comes after me and everything else. And Orsa has to listen to this. The irony of all of this, that she has to listen to it. But and in a sense, it's also feeding Orsa, about Spiros, what he's like. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting how they do come together and then they separate and come together again in the end with that understanding.
Well, it's an ironic twist. It's an ironic
Yeah.
twist that they live in the same house. An ironic twist that one sister shares with the other and what they get from each other. So
Yeah,
at the end, though, they come together. They're sisters.
Yeah, well, yes, it's interesting because Bonnie Smith put in, and yes, Bonnie, it's a good point. The sisters seem to regain faith in each other after Spiros was lost, after the venting and the acting out of the anger and the frustration. If Spiro did not die, would this have happened? But we don't have to worry about that because he did. So we have to stay in the frame. Stay in the movie. Don't imagine what happened because nothing would happen. Nothing else happened. This is Greek tragedy. This is Greek drama, and this is what happened. So we can imagine any one in 1,000 things, but don't imagine this is what happened. But yes, their faith in each other is regained through the death of Spiros. The death of the god brought them back to life, in a sense, except for Orsa, who. When Mosca makes the discovery of the letters and we see her, she was dying. She was dying. Michelle Cowan, I thought the sisterhood of all the women of the island was also fascinating. Yes. Yeah, well, it was a community of women and they had to be this way because the men go off. The men go off for maybe a year at a time. Maybe longer, who knows? So they only have each other. I love there's a scene, there's that one woman who at the beginning, we learn her husband had died at sea and she comes back to us later on and she crocheted this piece with the sinking of the Little England on it. It's another nod almost to the Odyssey. If you remember Penelope, she had to keep knitting. She kept knitting this tapestry until Odysseus would return. That was a way for her to ward off her other lovers, her other suitors. But it's also a nod again to Greek mythology. Is she was like a Cassandra, this woman. Her husband died at the beginning, and now she had created this tapestry of what happens, of the history of the Little England. So in a sense, yes, all these women, they mourn together, They celebrate together. That's what we saw during the film. Even though they have their petty antagonisms, they still come together. They
Mhm.
still come together. And it's important because the men aren't there. The men are stronger. I mean, the women are stronger. The men act like children. You know, they run off, they have affairs. They don't know how to behave half the time. And the women have to be strong. The women are the mothers, except Minna, her name was very apropos if you think about it. If we think of Greek and Roman mythology, Minotaur, she was the Minotaur. She was the monster. She created this labyrinth of betrayal and revelation. So there you
Yeah.
have it. Anybody else? Anybody? I thought I saw a hand out there. No hands.
It was just me again.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I just love the symbolism of the weathered spoon from the moment the movie opened up till the very end. I thought it was
Yes.
so symbolic and so beautiful.
Yes, it was. It was. The spoon was just a really nod, a great nod to the idea of time running through this film. You know, the spoon came from a time before. The spoon existed in a time during, and the spoon will exist in a time after. It's a
Right.
presence. It's a presence of permanence. It's a presence of permanence of history in the film. Very interesting, very poetic device. Yeah, Rhonda.
Yeah, as I mentioned before we got started, it was interesting that the prior film, A Fortunate Man, and this film centered around two sisters with a man in between, like the triangle. And in the first one, A Fortunate Man, the sister who kind of got betrayed, she ended up really doing well for herself and for the community. And in this film, the sister who got more or less betrayed, she ended up dying of sorrow. But I thought it was interesting, how the sisters reacted.
Yes, it is. It is very, very symbolic. And you know what? It does. It's a great comment because it also represents the ability for two sisters to get over their enmity. They'll experience enmity, then they come back together. There is a bond. There is a bond. You know, and in the film, even the parallel with A Fortunate Man, you know, one marries the suitor of the other in that film, right? You know, it's as it happens. In reverse, the older sister marries the suitor of the younger sister, but it's only because of him. I mean, he's the bad guy and all of that, but it's interesting how it plays out. And what happens to them during the course of the film. So yeah, it's almost a universal. It's a universal sisterhood. There is the greatest sisterhood of the women on the island, and then there is the intimate sisterhood of Mosca and Orsa, the same way in the other film. Do I hear a voice? Try it again.
Yeah, it's Nora. I'm not sure that Minna was a monster. I think she was a product of her time. I think we're looking at it from this in the year 2021 compared to what was happening in 1930.
Yeah, I mean, she is a victim too. She is a victim of tradition. She's a victim of ritual. She's a victim of the survival of wanting what she wants for her daughters. It's a tradition, and it's blind tradition. She's not thinking, you know, because of her feeling of hate, you know, towards what her husband's doing at sea, and all of this is, you know, her attitude is, what's love got to do with it? You know, what's love got to do with it? She's ruling out love because she can't feel love anymore. You remember that great scene when she's putting on the lipstick and she says, for years, I suffered. I was here on this island. I was chained to the island, like a Sisyphus. Not every day I rolled that stone uphill and it just rolled downhill. I had no place to go, and you're out there in the world, and knowing what he could possibly be doing. So but she knew what she was doing. She purposely rejected Spiros, especially when Emilio came to her and said he's in love with her. They've been in love. And she says, well, Spiros can't treat her like a sailor's whore. She doesn't understand. She doesn't want to understand. She turns a blind eye to love. And she's hardened. She's hardened. And I think, it's not necessarily that she's a monster, but she is not particularly sensitive to what's really going on in life, which causes all these problems, But I agree with you. It is the time. Naturally, the time rules all of this. It is an expression of this period, and also an expression of the fact of how men are. So she wants the best for her daughters. Marilyn, you have a response.
Getting back to what you were just talking about, I'm sort of conflicted. Part of me thinks that Minna was a victim and maybe it was a part of her time, but even taking it today, if you have a mother of 2 daughters and husband has a whole second life, I don't know how mothers will handle it, and everyone will handle it differently, but some of them will do what they're thinking is in their daughter's best interest, but really it's out of their anger and their inability to handle whatever is going on, as opposed to really being there for their daughters and doing what's in their best interest. And I think that's universal.
Yes.
I don't know that it's just then. I don't know. It could still happen today. You have mothers as evil today as Minna just because of they're so unhappy.
It's misguided parentage. It is. It's
Yeah.
a misguided parent, and that's essentially, again, yes, it does happen today. It's happened throughout history, because this goes back to Greek drama. Is the parent who thinks, I will control everything. I will control your destiny.
It's control.
It's control. It's controlling the destiny of their child. And you can't do that. It's going to turn into a tragedy, which it does, which it ultimately will. The best laid plans. This is what's happening here within the story. It's naturally amplified for melodramatic purposes. But yes, I tend to agree. This is not something that's isolated in time. It's for all time. The theme of having a choice of our actions, speaking of Bonnie Smith again, of having a choice of our actions in conflicting love relationships, is communicated. Yes, it is. Life is challenging. And that certainly is expressed in the film. Thank you, Bonnie. Who else out there wants to come in? We have maybe a minute left, but I want to tell you about the next film.
Yes.
So if anybody has anything they want to say, I'm ready, able, and willing. Okay, the next film, coming up in 2 weeks, in fact, another epic and an Academy Award-winning film, Nowhere in Africa. It comes to us from Germany on October 27th. It's a magnificent film, both from a cinematography standpoint, a performance standpoint, and also a story. It is a love story spanning 2 continents, Africa and Europe. It's an extraordinary tale of a Jewish family who flees the Nazis in 1938 for a remote farm in Kenya. abandoning a comfortable existence in Germany. Walter Redlich and his wife, Yedel, and their 5-year-old daughter, Regina, each come to deal with the harsh realities of their new life in different ways during the war. Walter is an attorney. He's resigned to creating a life for them on a remote farm as their caretaker. Yedel comes from a pampered existence. How will they adjust to this environment, and how will Regina grow up? And how will she deal with this new country she's being brought in, with different customs, different language, and the threat of war ever present to encroach on their land, as well as other things. How will they deal with the natives? You know, Africa is a cruel and primitive country at this point, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I hope you look forward to it, and I look forward to discussing it with you on October 27th. So have a good 2 weeks.
Thank
Have a
you,
good 2
Shelley.
weeks, and I look
It's
forward
great.
to seeing you then. Thank you. Thank you.